And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Overwatchers. I am Garrett Weinzierl, and I am joined, as I should be with this show, by Mr. Patrick Beja. Welcome back, Patrick.
Hey, Garrett, where have you been? I mean, how could you have timed this any worse?
Oh, I know. The amount of tweets I got that was, hey, Garrett, way to pick the best time to leave.
To get married.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just sitting here going, I got married. What do you want from me? Like,
All right, it's fine. It's fine. You're back. I'm back. We're here. We're going to be doing some Overwatchers episodes.
yeah, we are. It's great. And actually, as a kind of top of the show announcement, we're going bi-weekly, man. We're going to be doing the show at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Super bright and early for me. It's a really comfortable afternoon for you. But we have a massive time difference between us. So again, come join us over twitch.tv/amovetv for the live show. We're going bi-weekly every other Thursday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time from now on.
I mean, yeah, we're probably going to be doing this for a couple of months at least. I think it's fair to say that the fact the game is not free to play is probably going to mean that we're not exactly sure how it's going to play out for a regular show, but at least we have a couple of months at least planned for bi-weekly, so come join us.
Absolutely. And we'll be kicking it off today with kind of the de facto beginner's guide. And I know we kind of made this distinction last time, but just to make it again in case you're new and just picking this up, the goal with Overwatchers is to make kind of the casual gamers, the everyman's Overwatch show. So that's why we're not number crunching on today's episode. You know, we're not.
Yeah. And we're basically a day before or on the day of the start of the first stress test in the beta. So we thought it could be fun and useful to make a sort of, a starter guide for Overwatch, a beginner's guide, and basically give you all of the information that you might need if you're going to start playing Overwatch soon. And hopefully it will still apply in the future if you get into the beta later.
Yeah, and if not, then we get to make another starter guide, and that's fine. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Happens with games pretty often. So yeah, you mentioned the stress test. That's actually going to be starting this Friday. Blizzard's having their first. They're calling it a beta test weekend, but they are stressing that it is a stress test. It is still going to be invitation only, but many more players are going to be invited from the Americas and Europe to really put a load on the servers and the game itself. It's going to run through this upcoming Monday. It'll go down the morning of this upcoming Monday, November 23rd.
I think I've seen on Reddit a thread counting down the start of the stress test, and it was looking like it was going to start later today. So it's very likely that when you're listening to this, it's already started. If you're selected to be in the beta, it means you will just see in the Battle.net launcher on your PC, because the game is not on the Mac, you'll see the little install button that is going to appear and replace the more information button, I think it is.
Yeah,
and,
I call it the frustration button, because when I was staring at it and I couldn't play the game, I was very frustrated.
Yeah. And I think it's the frustration button for a lot of people.
Oh, I agree.
But yeah, and the emails are usually sent to inform the people that have been invited a couple of hours after the activation has happened. So, but you still need, in order to be invited, you need to have opted into the beta, and you won't be invited in any other way. So,
exactly. I also recommend, I know some people installed the game when the beta went live that didn't get invited. I forget exactly what the workaround was, but there was a way that you could still install the client so it would be ready when you do get beta access. However, when I got my beta access, I didn't get an email until the next day. So it might actually behoove you to uninstall Overwatch so that when that install button shows up, you know at that moment you got access. You don't have to just keep checking your already installed beta client obsessively and losing your mind.
Good point.
Yeah.
So the beta is going to be relatively limited. There's going to be just 3 maps: Hanamura, which is a capture map; King's Row, which is a hybrid map; and Watchpoint Gibraltar, which is only payload. And yeah, they're really pointing out the fact that it is a beta. It's to test stuff. There's a lot of things happening with the matchmaker that they're testing, so you might get some pretty bad matches, but they're hoping it's going to work out. But it's really the essence of a beta, and feel free to go send feedback on the forums, and let Blizzard know basically what you felt about the beta.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's shift gears and let's start to talk a little bit about things you should know if you're jumping into Overwatch for the first time.
And yeah, we're going to go over the basics. I mean, just very quickly, we're going to go over the basics of the game, which you might already know if if you've been paying attention. But just in case, it's not going to last forever. But just in case you need a quick reminder of some of the details.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with maps. You mentioned the three that are going to be in the stress test, and there's going to be basically one of each. So there's three types of maps in Overwatch at the moment. There's payload, there's point capture, and then there are hybrid maps, which basically start off as a point capture map and then become a payload map once that first point is captured. There's two hybrid maps at the moment. It's the new Hollywood map that they showed at BlizzCon, which is already in the game, and King's Row. Now, Hollywood will not be part of the stress test this weekend. You won't be seeing it, which is a shame. Such a cool map.
And there's Numbani actually as well, which is a hybrid, and it won't be included in the test either. But yeah, I think, this is to be expected. They're just going to have a few maps for the test. It's not surprising. And this is the three... we're going to get into a few things that every beginner should know a little bit later, and this is sort of part of that. The game is exclusively about objectives, and you don't have any skirmishes or death matches. That doesn't exist in the game. There's a skirmish mode that basically acts as a lobby that you get thrown into as you're waiting to get a team, but the game itself is only about different types of objectives, which are usually attack and defend objectives with points moving or not.
Right, absolutely. But I like that while you're waiting for a game too, that you skirmish. Even though I've been getting stuck in those for a while now, but it's a beta. It happens. Weird stuff happens.
And the matches, that's one thing I really like about the game. The matches usually last between 5 and 10 minutes. I think it's closer to 10 in general, but they are super quick. It's really, if you think about it, usually the games are shorter than a Hearthstone match. It's pretty incredible. The games are super fast, and still they manage to create a kind of a dramatic pace to the whole thing, with moments where you think you're going to win, then you get thrown back, and then you counterattack, and it feels very eventful 5 or 10 minutes, but it's still super short.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you get out of a short game, you still kind of have a story to tell most of the time, unless you just got completely creamed, which is, I feel, few and far between. I feel like even when I lose games, a lot of the times, there's a big back and forth, and at the end, I could be like, okay, well, this was the beginning, this was the middle, and this was the end of this game, even though it was only 7 minutes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And usually if you get creamed, we'll get into that, but there's something that you're not doing right, and it's easily fixable. But the balance of the game is actually very, very good. At least that's how I felt.
It's impressive at this early of a stage. It's Blizzard. I trust them. Most of their games are pretty darn balanced. I'm sure somebody out there right now is, oh my God, Hearthstone's a mess, or Heroes is a mess. But I disagree with you. Nameless dissenter.
Yeah. So the next thing is heroes and abilities. And basically, all of the heroes work more or less the same mechanically, but the different abilities are very different. You're going to have the heroes divided in 4 roles, and all of them have basically one, sometimes 2 different weapons, but usually it's just the one, and 2 special abilities, and they have 1 ultimate ability. And so it's very similar to any FPS. You're going to have 1 ability which is keyboard shortcutted to shift, 1 is E, and the other one is the ultimate is Q. And you usually have your main gun, your main fire is right mouse button. You have another one sometimes on left mouse button, like a zoom for a sniper or things like that, or a shield for a tank, things like that. So this is very straightforward. What changes is how each of the heroes is played and what those abilities do. I don't think we're going to go into every hero
No,
individually. I think we might do that in later shows.
Yeah, that would we'd be here for a very long time if we were going to do that. But yeah, in the basics are is that every hero has something bound to shift, E, Q. Sometimes there's an ability baked into their jump button on spacebar, and you've got your primary fire on left click and alternate fire on right click. And some heroes break those rules in certain ways. You mentioned zooming in with Widowmaker. Mercy actually has two weapons because her main primary weapon actually is not a weapon. It only supports, just to give a couple of examples there. But for the most part, they all play in the same way. The variance comes down to the hero's kits. It's a word I'm going to use a lot when discussing this stuff. It's a word we use over in Heroes of the Storm all the time, basically saying that this is the arrangement of abilities that these heroes have. They each have different kits, and that's what sets them apart, the way that their abilities function, the cooldowns of their individual abilities. That's really what makes them shine.
And some of them have passive abilities. Junkrat notably drops a bunch of grenades when he dies, which can it lead to hilarity or despair. There are a few of those like that. But even more important is the roles that they're divided in. And they seem pretty straightforward, but I think it might be worth just explaining in the context of the game as people who have played it quite a bit. I mean, I go around and I say that Overwatch is everything I play, and when I'm not playing it, I'm thinking about playing it. So I've played quite a bit in the past couple of weeks. So the roles are attack, defense, tank, and support. And they seem straightforward, but it's, as I was saying, it's good to redefine them in the context of this game. And I'm going to start actually with tank. A tank role's job is going to be to basically be at the point. Every character can be very active, including tank and support, but a tank is usually does less damage than the attack and defense characters, although, again, they can be very active. But they do less damage, but they have a lot of health, which is, makes sense with a tank. So the best way to use a tank is to put them at a point that you need to capture or that you need to move. The role of a tank is going to be that thing that other enemy characters have to engage in order to prevent them from taking the point or from advancing the objective. That is really important to understand, because if you're a tank and you're not at the point, there's a good chance you're not doing your job. It's fine to go around and kill people here and there, but most likely your job is to be at the point.
And the first time you jump in as a tank, I'm a big fan of Reinhardt, and now the Diva's in the game. I think she might be my go-to. But the first time you kind of jump in, it's tempting not to do what you just said. You're going to see small skirmishes breaking off on the outskirts of the objective, and it's tempting to want to go support your buddies who are trying to get off some kills. But really, I feel you should be doing what you just said, Patrick.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we're talking about for beginners, right? We're not talking about advanced strategies. And certainly there are moments where there's a team fight breaking off and you have to go and help and spend a little bit of time making sure your team has the advantage. But maybe that's a little bit more advanced of a technique. As a beginner, keep in mind, if you only have, space in your mind for a limited amount of things because you're discovering this type of game, keep in mind that a tank is probably best placed at the objective. The support, again, it's pretty straightforward. You have different types of support, but most likely they're going to be healing or helping the other members of the team somehow. The most straightforward one is healing, but there's also a lot of movement abilities or resistance. Symmetra can place shields on everyone, but Symmetra and Lucio are going to help by making your team get to where they need to go faster, as well as helping with making them doing damage and healing or buffing. And that's really important. We'll get into a little bit of the mechanics of the maps later, but getting faster to the objective when you just died can absolutely change the course of the game. So support is not just about healing.
No, it's not. It's because the death timers in this game are not long. Really, what kind of affects the way the game plays out, the tempo of the game, and the thing that gives death weight is your travel time from when you spawn to get back into the action. So they have someone like Lucio who can speed you along very quick. You move so quickly when a Lucio is near you, or having Symmetra drop down a teleporter to get you almost instantly back into the fight. It can swing the game in a huge way.
Absolutely. And that's actually, again, we'll get back into this, but this is something that I really appreciate about the game, and which we mentioned in our first impressions a couple of weeks ago. You can swing the game without ever shooting a bullet, and that is absolutely the case.
I love it because I'm traditionally not the best at shooters.
Yeah, and a lot of us are in that case, and there is a place for you as well, and a place not only to improve your team's abilities, but also to have tremendous amounts of fun in this game. Then you have the attack role, which is the most traditional one. Basically, your role is to make sure that the enemies are dead, but in an offensive way. So you're not going to necessarily you're going to be seeking out the enemies is the best way I can describe it. A lot of them have ways to heal themselves, so they're a little bit more independent, and they go looking for trouble, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Very traditional. We don't need to spend too much time on the attack heroes. And then you have the defense heroes that are a lot less mobile. They are probably going to be encroached somewhere, or they're still, everything is very relative in all of these descriptions. Any role can do a lot of what the other roles would need to do, but generally speaking, the defense heroes are going to be protecting the point or the objective, and not very mobile, but make sure that the people coming to attack your objective die. So they can all be used in attack and defense, absolutely. But the defense heroes are more intuitive to play for defense scenarios when you're on the defense team.
Yeah, they're good at locking down a location.
Exactly, yeah.
We're going to see a lot of them in point capture maps.
Well, honestly, you see, I think that's where Blizzard is managing to do a pretty balanced game. It's that you see all of the roles in all of the types of games. It is very surprising to see, like, I started playing Symmetra a lot because I thought she was an interesting take on a support character, but I was playing her mainly as defense. And one time I found myself going against a team that has a Symmetra on the attack team, and I thought it was odd, but he was, he had such a mastery of the placement of turrets and on the way they should use their weapons that it turned out that as an attack character, she's also incredibly efficient. So the different roles work in both attack and defend scenarios.
Yeah, she's a good heal. I use the word healer loosely because she's more
support.
Damage. Yeah, she's a good support in the heat of battle because Mercy's really good because you're getting a lot of healing out, but you have to kind of focus on whoever needs to be healed. Whereas Symmetra can kind of just throw out shields and stay in the fight and start popping enemy shields with her charge up, her alternate fire.
Yeah. Absolutely, she is a counter to many frustrating characters.
Yeah. Get rid of those Reinhardt shields, guys. Get rid of them. So, do you want to real quick make the Bastion PSA since we were just talking about defense?
So I wanted to do that as the one of the things that that beginners should know.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to jump into that.
No, we can wait. We can wait. That's fine.
I guess we're done on the roles though.
Yeah, I guess we did kind of just run through them, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, let's move to it then, because you've put together this really nice little list. That's 5 things you think every beginner should know.
Yeah, I mean, when you first start the game, there are first impressions that are that can be deceptive or that are important to understand it if you want to have the best possible experience. And I think the first thing is that, as we were alluding to, this is a team game. Your primary objective is always going to be the objective. If you go off and start killing enemies just for the sake of it, you're probably going to be making, doing a disservice to your team, and you're probably not going to be helping to win the game. You can go around and start killing everyone, for hours, but if you're not on the payload or defending the payload, then someone else is going to sneak around and do that, and you're going to lose the game. So, of course, you should go out and shoot people because that's, it's an FPS. But it's only valuable to your team if it is in service of helping with the objective. So that is an important thing to keep in mind, because a lot of new players show up and just start going around, and it's natural, you don't necessarily know exactly what the game is until you've played for a few games. But a lot of new players show up and just go around shooting stuff without worrying about the objective. That is probably a bad idea if you want to win.
Yeah, don't treat it like a team deathmatch. If you've played Heroes of the Storm, I draw a really close parallel there, because that game is all about the objective. As fun as it is the team fight, it should be in support of the objective. So
yeah.
The second thing is, and I really agree with this one, I was personally surprised, is that tanks and support characters are really fun to play. I was very standoffish about supports at first, because I'm like, well, this is a shooter. I want to get in and just own people. I was surprised by how much I enjoy Mercy. She's still one of my favorite heroes to play. She has a very fun movement kit. I'm a sucker for just a fun way to move around. It's nice. It's fun to keep people alive. If you're not traditionally good at shooters, one of the best ways that you can annoy your enemies is to make sure that they can't kill your friends.
This will absolutely change the entire course of a game. It's very surprising how fun those characters are, because when you think support, you just think, oh, I'm going to stand there and heal. And I think a lot of people playing World of Warcraft might assume that. It is very different in this game. You're there to, heal or support your team, but first of all, with the exception of Mercy, I think, who doesn't damage directly too much. It's possible with her secondary gun, but she doesn't do it too much. The other 3 support characters can absolutely be lethal. Their weapons do damage and do significant damage. But on top of that, they are extremely active and they can be very aggressive. With Lucio, for example, you can go in and start shooting enemies, and you're just, helping out with your team because you're by default sort of healing everyone. But it is absolutely possible for you to be aggressive with the support heroes and with the tank heroes. A lot of people start playing Reinhardt, for example. They put up the giant shield in front of them, and then they sort of go to sleep. But Reinhardt can be incredibly aggressive. I mean, the hammer does immense damage. His charge is incredibly efficient if you aim it well. The projectile that he sends, the fire hammer thing, can carve a space in front of you, and his ultimate can, if used properly, can completely wreck an entire team. So all of the characters, which we were saying earlier, all of the characters can be played in a super fun and active way. And they're very easy to grasp for beginners to FPSs. If you are intimidated, play Mercy, play Lucio, play I don't know, play Reinhardt, play Winston. You will be a lot more comfortable with these characters than you would be with a character whose job is to actually shoot enemies down.
I agree with that. It's nothing feels passive. If you're worried that playing one of these characters as a tank or as a support that you're going to be doing kind of a passive role, I've yet to have that experience in the game where I feel like I'm just standing around. Even as Mercy, where I'm like, I only want to heal and give people damage buffs. I'm still zipping all over the place.
That's the thing. I mean, Mercy's movement ability makes her very, you're constantly looking at your screen, making sure that everyone is healed up. And even if they are all healed up, you're going to be switching between heal and damage buff and, making sure that you switch back to heal if someone needs it. So it is actually a high level Mercy is probably going to be one of the most hectic characters. She's as hectic possibly as Tracer, who teleports everywhere. So yeah, it can be absolutely active and fun and aggressive.
Yeah. That said, I understood Mercy's kit almost instantly, whereas Tracer I'm still trying to grasp.
Yeah. Yeah. They're a lot easier to grasp. We're going to get to character recommendations a little bit later in the show.
Yep.
There's a couple of additional points about what is overpowered and what seems overpowered at first. I think everyone in the beginning feels that the defense side is extremely overpowered when you first start because there is 1 minute before the match starts where they can run all the way to the first objective and set up their defenses, and they're going to be putting up turrets and snipers and tanks, and they are just outside your door. And you're going to feel like you come out, you die, you come out, you die, and this is a very frustrating experience. But actually, this is completely baked into what the game is, and it makes for a super fun dynamic that contributes to that story feeling that we were talking about, because the defense team is very far from their spawn point, and you as the attack team are right at your spawn point. So the game at this stage is to basically make sure that you pick one or two of them off, and that at that point, you break through and you start attacking the objective itself, which is in a much more open area than the initial choke point confrontation. So they set up their defenses at the choke point, but as soon as you pick off one or two of them, their defense is significantly weaker, and it's going to take them, 30 seconds to come back to set up their defense again. So during that time, you absolutely can break through and start making a dent in the defense. So it's somewhat difficult at first, but if you know what you're doing, if you try to, for example, let's say the defense is superbly locked down, then it's probably because they have a lot of specific defense characters. So it might be a good idea to try and just completely bypass it. You just go through, rush to the point, and as soon as you start taking the point, they're going to have to break up their defense and come back to the point. And they're a lot less well equipped to defending that point because they probably have less mobile characters who are not going to be able to deal with your attack as efficiently. So don't despair. Defense is not overpowered. It's actually the opposite once you start to understand the game. And that's something that Jeff Kaplan was saying in his developers update earlier today, and that a lot of new players feel like defense is overpowered, but a lot of experienced players feel like defense is underpowered. So as a new player, keep in mind that there are ways to break through, and keep in mind that fact that if you kill someone, it's going to take them forever to come back, which, by the way, stresses out the idea that a Symmetra teleporter can swing a game, and if they have one, if you see that they keep coming back all the time very quickly, probably means they have a teleporter, and it certainly means you should destroy it if it's there.
Absolutely. This is a very easy mental trap to fall into. I definitely felt the same way when I first started the game. The first time I was on defense, I was like, wait, you mean we just get to hang out in front of the door and set up the most perfect defense possible? But you're absolutely right. You learn very quickly to pick the right heroes, to pick a hero that can get out of the door quickly, that has some type of movement ability that allows you to engage. And if you're on the support side, you need to be able to follow them. You can use Guardian Angel on Mercy to follow that diva that just boosted into the battle, or however it is. And like you kept saying, you kept harping on, just kill one or two of them. Just make an opening. Once you can get a foothold, when you can knock one or two of them off and get an opening, the fight really starts. I'm amazed by just the feeling of the beginning of these games. It's frantic, it's fun. I love it.
Yeah. And as I was saying, if you feel like there's no way of killing them because there's, 3 turrets looking at you and destroying you as soon as you show your toe, then switch to a character that has high mobility and bypass everything. Just go over it, go through it, and just get to the point. They're gonna have to break up that defense. And by the way, for the defense, for that same reason, you should make sure that you do not overextend yourself. If you're starting to feel cocky, if you're starting to feel confident, and you're playing a tank and you're like, yeah, we're mowing them down, and you venture into their area a little bit too much because you're pushing, then you might die. And if you do, it's going to take you forever to come back. And that is a very easy to make mistake.
Absolutely.
Another of those. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier and decided to hold until now. Another thing that most new players kind of come to the conclusion of is that Bastion himself is overpowered. Now, we just talked about defense as in starting on the defense side. Let's talk about one of the defense heroes that tends to get a lot of flack from folks just getting into the beta. And it's Bastion. He's actually, from in terms of a kit and design side, one of my favorite heroes. I love the whole idea behind Bastion. He was the first hero I gravitated towards. I had kind of an opposite reaction to Bastion. I thought he was overpowered and just made me want to play him more. But he only really seems that way at first. He's actually incredibly easy to kind of outmaneuver, outflank, because he is at his most powerful when he is in his turret form, which he cannot turn a full 360. He has kind of a cone of movement that he can move between. So if you get behind him or to a rather extreme angle to his side, he has to get out of turret form to deal with you, and he's much more exposed. And if he doesn't get out of turret form, he's pretty much guaranteed to die.
Yeah, I mean, most likely, if you make him have to get out of turret form, it's probably because you've already shot at him. So by the time he's out of turret form, he's half or a quarter of his life left. So he's gonna die. Same thing, if you're Tracer, you just show up, and one clip, if you empty it, is gonna kill him. If you're Reaper, you can just use your void walk kind of ability to be invulnerable and get right next to him, and a couple of shots and he's dead as well. But by far the most underrated weapon against Bastion is Symmetra. Symmetra's alternate fire is a sort of ball of energy that travels very slowly. So for a lot of characters, it's not going to be a huge threat, but it's very powerful. So for characters that are not mobile, for characters that are stationary, like a Bastion in turret mode, that ball of energy that goes through shields, by the way, as you were mentioning, you just need a couple of them and Bastion is dead. So if it's a good Bastion player, for the new Bastion player that is going to show up and try to be the most powerful thing there is, they're probably going to die. If they're a good Bastion player, they're at least going to have to move, and you're going to disrupt their defense again. And that's when you can try and move things along and move into the area you should be into. So as a general point, you have to remember that every character that might feel overpowered has multiple counters. and multiple direct counters, multiple characters that can counter them specifically.
And that's why hero switching is a thing in this game. It's incredibly important. You'll probably see it if you start reading subreddits and forums. People saying that this game you should lock in your hero and only be that one hero for the whole game. And the developers have come out multiple times and said that no, we've tried that, and once we were playing around with hero switching, we found out that this should be a feature of the game. That the kind of the changing tide of the game as heroes swap in, swap out to counter each other back and forth is a huge portion of the game. So just keep that in mind, and it's pretty easy to find. There's not a ton of resources right now. The game's still relatively early, but it's easy to go around and find counters to specific heroes, like we were just talking about for Bastion.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the only thing that is obviously overpowered is Torbjorn's level 3 turrets. They are horrible, and I cannot deal with them. But I think, if you, for that, for example, you make sure that you don't get too close, because they're stationary, but they also have, they're most efficient very close, at close or mid-range. So you stay away and you use, Farah or Junkrat, and you lob grenades over there, or you shoot your rockets from far away, and you're probably going to be able to deal with them from that distance. So even the Torbjorn turrets, which at level 3 do feel overpowered, I think there are ways to deal with them.
Yeah, you just don't want to bum rush one. You don't want to end up within the kill zone of one of those things.
And that's what I kept doing, and I kept dying, and it was very frustrating. So
yep, no, play Farah, man. What's the worst thing about Farah? Well, her rockets are hard to hit things with. Well, shoot at something that doesn't move.
Exactly, yeah. The last tip for beginners would be listen to what the game tells you. There is a ton of information that is conveyed to you by the game that sort of makes the reliance on communication, on direct communication by other players, less important. I'm not saying it's not absolutely important, but if you at least listen to what the game tells you, you're probably going to be doing a better job than people who don't. The most obvious one is the series of tips for team building. When they tell you you have, low damage team or no tank or no support, then it's probably a good idea to try and add one. But also another thing that I'm not sure how many people realize is a lot of the dialogue of the characters in the game will tell you important information, like they have a teleporter. Lots of characters will tell you in their own, way, they probably have a teleporter. Pay attention to that. That means that, they're coming back so quickly. The game is telling you, it's nudging you, it's saying, hey, you should probably do something about that teleporter because it's making you dead. Same thing with the payload. If you're running around and no one is paying attention to the payload, they will say, back in my day, we'd have that payload delivered already. That means get on the freaking payload. And at that point, if you're an attack hero and you're thinking, well, it's not my job, then you can either keep not doing it and let your team lose, or bite the bullet and go and do it for a little bit and encourage your team to get back to the payload. Or, in chat, say, hey, guys, we should focus on the payload, smiley face.
This is getting a little personal, Patrick. It feels like you may have had a couple rough games this week.
No, but what I found, actually, was that there were a lot of players who didn't even realize those things, and it really just took a friendly reminder. I'm not kidding. I'm not being, disingenuous for the sake of being cutesy. It really took just a gentle reminder. Usually, I'm not saying it works every time, but usually you just say, hey, guys, we should really focus on the payload. And, they just remember. And they often do go to the payload. So I think it might be partly because it's only people who a limited pool of people maybe, which, by the way, that might be a factor that is beneficial to the fact that the game is for pay might be beneficial for that, because it's not just going to be random free-to-play players who don't care about the game. They've invested money in it, so I'm thinking maybe it's going to help in that regard as well. But
we'll see.
Since
anytime you're lucky enough to have early access to a game like this, like we are, I feel like the very early days, the community is a lot more. There's a lot more camaraderie going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot more.
That's true.
Everyone's sharing tips and trying to learn from one another, and it's a lot less likely that you're going to run into a random aggressive player. But as time goes on, it's going to happen. You're going to run into your Xbox Live nightmares. But,
yeah, no, you will. But I think the game also doesn't encourage this as much as other games. It's really about team play. So if you're just going to repeatedly have a bad experience, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But anyway, the point is the game tells you a lot about what's happening. And it often tells you, for example, sniper. Someone yells out behind you, or sniper. Pay attention to those things. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. Can we talk recommendations? Can we talk about heroes?
Yes.
Yes.
We're gonna go into some slightly more advanced tips, but let's take a break and talk about recommendations. I have my list here. Let me know if it fits with yours. Actually, go ahead. Tell me which characters you'd recommend.
Actually, I think I for the most part agree with you. So you've got kind of 2 recommendations per role, which I think is great. The only thing now, you have Reinhardt and Winston as your tanks, and I for the most part agree with that. But I'm just all about D.Va right now, and I don't feel that her kit is all that hard. I think she's still pretty easy to understand. She doesn't even have an alternate fire for her weapon. So I might even say that hey, if D.Va looks cool, go for it. I don't think she's that hard to pick up and play.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a very beginner for the first few games, I think D.Va has those 2 modes. She's in mech and not in mech, and her thing explodes. And the thing is, when you use her ultimate, you'd better know that you have to run away, because the first 5 times you're gonna explode with it.
Oh yeah,
and it's not gonna be fun. I don't think.
I did that too. I didn't have a chance to try her at BlizzCon, so I didn't get to play her till I got back from the honeymoon. And yeah, I was like, oh, okay, so she jumps out of her suit and self-detonates, and I'll start running away. You need to book it as fast as you can. You can't stop and take a couple pot shots at anyone. Like, if you are not completely clear of that thing, you're dead. You killed yourself, and you're going to have to watch yourself kill yourself in the kill cam right afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's line of sight. So if you can get behind something, you're going to be fine, which people learn very quickly. But yeah, I would say as a tank, my personal recommendation would be Reinhardt. I think he's easier to approach and understand, or Winston. These are the 2 I would recommend.
And they're terrifying when you're dealing with them, by the way. You don't want these guys standing next to you as an enemy. They really come in feeling like a behemoth, just swinging their weight around.
Reinhardt, when he's swinging his hammer, he can take out, honestly, a good Reinhardt will take out an entire team. I'm not kidding. He throws his projectile, then rushes in, does his ultra, and starts swinging his hammer like it's 1992. I don't know why that.
Why did
year,
you?
But
I would argue like early aughts, because that's when Halo came about and brought in killer hammers into a shooter. But okay.
Well, there you go. And yeah, and he's gonna destroy everything. It's really frightening, but it's also, again, the characters are much easier to approach, I would say.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I saw I played a bunch of games yesterday. I want to say 3 plays of the game where Reinhardt's just owning. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Now, what about attack characters? You've got Soldier 76 and Pharah. I'm right there with you. I personally not the biggest Soldier 76 fan, but that's because I think he's as
Generic?
vanilla gets.
Yeah, he is very generic, but I think that's the entire point for this hero. He's generic in his design. He's generic in his story to an extent, and he's also generic in his gameplay kit. But that's the thing. He does everything and everything relatively easily. His movement ability is sprint, which is very familiar for everyone. He has an assault rifle, and he also has a not a grenade launcher, a rocket launcher, which is on a long cooldown, 8 seconds. So it feels familiar. He also has a heal that will heal himself and other people near the heal point. So again, he's very independent. He can help in many different ways. And his ultimate is basically easy mode. His ultimate is auto aim for everything that's in sight. So Soldier 76 is very satisfying. I really like playing him, but he's very easy to approach.
He's kind of the multi-tool of your team. If you're not really sure, if you haven't learned your counters yet, or how to really compose a team, Soldier 76 is a really safe bet because he can do a little bit of everything.
Yep, absolutely. And Farah, she has a rocket launcher, so it does a lot of damage. It does splash damage, so you don't necessarily have to hit your target on the head. Although if you do, they're gonna explode. And she can jump really high, basically, and she hovers around. She's easy to understand and easy to play. So I would recommend you start with her rather than a very difficult character like Genji, which I still can't understand how to play.
I am terrible with Genji. The one person I might add on to here is Reaper. I stayed away from him forever because I'm a gaming hipster. If everyone else is playing something, I don't want to play it. But I apologize for that.
That's okay.
I forgot to turn off my regular alarm. But I broke down and tried him this week, and man, just fits like a glove. I feel like pretty easy to understand. His shotguns have longer range than I thought they did. I now completely understand why I was dying to him all the time. I dig him. I feel like Reaper and Tracer kind of fill a very similar role. They're about kind of getting behind enemy lines, getting behind people like Bastion, and just causing havoc. But I feel like Reaper's kit's a lot more straightforward than, say, someone like Tracer.
Yep, absolutely. And the thing I want to say as well is it's pretty amazing how all of the characters are fun. I don't have any character that I actively dislike. I'm not the biggest fan of maybe Torbjorn or McCree or, maybe 3 characters that I don't really enjoy playing, but that's it. And even those, it's like, it's not my cup of tea, but it's because I'm not into their specific play style. But everyone else, I actively enjoy playing. So it's also why I don't mind too much when the team needs a specific role. I don't mind switching because I enjoy all of them, and it's sort of choosing for me what flavor of ice cream I'm going to be tasting today.
Yeah, I really enjoy hero switching as well. I get kind of excited. It's like, oh, sweet, now I get to heal because someone stopped healing. Yeah, because a lot of when I first got into beta, it seemed like no one wanted to heal, and now that I'm back from the honeymoon, it seems like everyone's kind of figured out at least one person needs to be filling that support role. So now I get kind of excited because I don't get to heal as much as I did when the beta first launched.
Yeah, I mean, usually you will have one support and one tank at least, and that usually works itself out, which is surprising because, again, when you start, you might think, I'm just going to play the pew-pew characters. What about defense?
I agree. You have Junkrat, you have Bastion. Junkrat's not one of my favorite heroes, but I think he's a great hero for defense. Bastion, super easy to understand. Are you in turret mode? Cool, you're probably killing people. but keep an eye on your surroundings. Go watch Batman Begins and learn about minding your surroundings.
Yeah. And Junkrat, what a fun hero to play. I resisted going to Junkrat because I thought he didn't appeal to me at all. But I ended up playing it just to try because, you're going to try all of the characters. And how fun it is to play Junkrat. His grenade launcher is obviously very powerful, and again, splash damage, and he can lob them across the entire field and get enemies where they thought they were safe, because they also ricochet across walls and stuff like that. So
Yeah, he's all about the indirect damage, which I think is part of the reason I don't gravitate towards him. I've never been a huge fan of any gun in a game that has like an arc that I have to kind of play around with. But if that's your thing, Junkrat's totally your man. And I actually love the flavor of Junkrat, the whole design, the whole kind of Mad Max vibe that's going on with him. He's completely insane, and I love the character.
Yeah. And Bastion, as we said, and also he can heal himself as well. So yeah, Bastion is fun as well. And then obviously support. I guess Mercy is a lot more fun than you think she will be, and very approachable, as we already discussed, so I'm not going to spend too much time on her. Lucio, another one of those characters that I thought was ridiculous. I just thought it didn't fit. He didn't work in that environment.
He looks like a character from the 90s Burger King Happy Meals.
I guess to an extent, yeah, that's what it felt like.
The BK Kids Club, if my inner 90s child is remembering correctly.
But yeah, when you actually play him, he is perfect. Perfect. I adore, I love all of the characters, as I was saying. I love all of the support characters. I think I enjoy the others because they're efficient and they can make some very technical plays. Lucio, I just enjoy because he's fun. You always have fun when you're playing Lucio. He has this switching from healing to speed up song, and then you can amplify the song you're currently playing with his E ability, which happens every 6 seconds or 8 seconds, and it feels incredibly badass and fun to play him. So absolutely recommend Lucio as well.
I'm in the exact same boat as you. When they announce him, I'm like, oh my god, this guy looks so lame. He's like the lamest DJ ever. But I love having one on my team now. Really, I just still can't bring myself to be the Lucio, but I want one on my team.
Yeah.
So bring it on, man. Bring your silly dubstep guns and let's get something done.
It's so, but when he has his ultimate and he's in the middle of everyone and he goes like, oh, let's break it down, and you radiate this green shield thing and you're like, yeah, I'm breaking it down, man. It's awesome.
Oh wow!
Awesome.
I think you just highlighted why he's so absurd, because it's like your dad trying to dance cool. That's the level of like branded cool they've managed to inject into Lucio.
I don't know. I'm dad age, so I'm perfectly cool with Lucio. I actually love the character now and the music. So there you
go. Fair enough.
So Soldier 76, Farah, Junkrat, Bastion, Reinhardt, Winston, and to an extent Diva, according to Garrett, and Mercy or Lucio. But really, these are the characters you might want to play if you're intimidated for the first few games, and then you can branch out, and all of them are fun. When you press F1, it shows you all of the abilities that each character has, and it also shows you a rating of difficulty. So it's 1, 2, or 3 stars. Obviously, for the beginning, maybe stick with the 1-star characters.
Yeah, I feel like they've done a pretty good job with their difficulty ratings in this game. Because again, to draw a parallel to Heroes, and remember when I first got into Heroes, they had difficulty ratings, and I still think some of their difficulty ratings in Heroes of the Storm are really off.
Really?
Yeah. There's some heroes that are marked as easy. I'm just like, oh, are they? Are they? I don't know about that, guys. But anyways. Semi-advanced tips. If you want to get a little deeper, go a little further down the rabbit hole. Got 5 more for you.
If you've been following a little bit more and you already knew all of the things we just discussed, and you're like, we knew that. Well, you're maybe going to know these as well, but you might not.
Also, those people may have just turned the show off by now. That's okay. It's all right.
So the first thing I'd like to tell the people who have started playing, who have, played a few hours already, start, actually it goes from the beginning, but use your ultimates. The game tells you that. It does give you the little tips every time you die.
It's not subtle at all, by the way. When your ultimate is up, it's the biggest button on the screen glowing with so much like blue energy fire. It's hard to miss.
So the ultimates actually do build up pretty fast, a lot faster than you might think. So it absolutely is valid to try and use an ultimate, even if you're just taking out or protecting one or two people. It does matter to the game. So yes, there might be plays where you want to keep it to make sure that you use it at the right time. But again, if you're just getting a feel for the game, don't hesitate to use your ultimate, not when there's nothing happening around you, but if you feel that it will help or take out one character, or two is absolutely a no question. Just do it. Even for one, it might be useful. So don't save your ultimate for the perfect moment, because then you're going to end up, yes, you might get that perfect moment, but you might end up using it just once in the game instead of, 3 or 4 times, which will in the end be less beneficial to your team. So yeah, use your ultimates.
Yeah. Next point, being outnumbered. It's usually bad. And this is something that actually took me a while to learn in MOBAs, and the same is true here. There's no shame in running away, especially if you're the only one left, and all you're going to do is die and have a very long run back to the fight. Escape if you can. Live so that you can continue fighting on the point with your team when the rest of them show back up, or disengage from whatever fight is currently occupying them. Obviously, there's some there's some exceptions to this. Actually, we could tie the previous rule into the exception, which is if you have an ultimate that kind of thrives in a target-rich environment, like Pharah's Barrage or maybe Diva's Self-Destruct, maybe if you see a bunch of baddies and no friends around, maybe pop your ultimate and get the play of the game. But wait till you feel like you understand the way your ultimate works before maybe trying that.
Yeah, and even then, if you're sneaking up behind those many enemies, then yes. But if not, a lot of the ultimates, you'll start it, and then you'll just be killed because they're shooting at you. I can't remember how many times I've heard Farah yell out, "Justice reigns from above!" and that happens all the time. So yes, definitely.
I had one of those yesterday. It was very embarrassing.
Yeah, you hear it all the time. It's justice reigns from above, and I've got you in my side, and it's high noon, and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
So actually, related to this, when you're running away or when you come out of an engagement where you're successful, even go grab a health pack. You're not always going. This is especially true for attack or maybe even defense characters, but go grab a health pack before you jump back into the game. Remember that you should probably you're going to be more useful if you end up surviving at Half-Life twice than if you survive at Half-Life once, jump back in and die. So remember where the health packs are. You're going to know the maps relatively quickly. And once you've disengaged from a fight, either because you're running away like a coward or because you're victorious and you want to regroup, go grab a health pack. That's very important, especially for characters that obviously can't heal themselves.
Yeah. Keep in mind verticality. It's really important on a lot of these maps. You're probably not going to notice this at first, but once you start picking up heroes like Pharah, Reaper, Hanzo, Genji, or Widowmaker, all that have very vertical methods of traversal, you'll start to pick up on just how vertical some of these maps can get. Pharah, for example, stay out of hallways as far. It's not a good place to be. You're not effective, and usually there's a higher elevated way that you can move through an area where you can be more effective with your rockets.
Yeah, absolutely. It took me forever to understand that how vertical the maps were. And I was, trying a sniper, which I'm incredibly bad with, either Hanzo or Widowmaker, and I would just stand there and try to snipe people half a map away, but just standing on the ground. And obviously, since all of the action is happening on the ground, I was getting blown up every 2 seconds. So, I mean, maybe Widowmaker is a bad example because her ability is basically be Spider-Man and grab onto a ledge and get there.
Pull yourself up, yeah.
Come again?
I said you just pull yourself up, basically. Reaper, the same thing, and he can use his teleport to get up somewhere high, but he shouldn't be fighting up there. I mean, Widowmaker should. She should be up there trying to get an angle on everyone, but Reaper, it's really just to kind of get from point A to point B.
Yeah, and generally, I mean, that verticality can be useful for many different heroes, but specifically for Reaper, initially you might think I'm going to teleport farther, just above something and then go back down. But obviously, you can do that and then get behind the enemy line and attack them, like we were talking about with Bastion, for example. Get behind Bastion and blow him up, or even go attack the point. If you do it correctly, because there are also pathways in some of the maps. There are pathways that are elevated that not a lot of characters are going to be able to get to. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. It's going to help you be more efficient more quickly than staying on the ground forever until you realize you shouldn't.
Yep, I agree. And finally, we say this about a lot of Blizzard games. They're really easy to learn, but they're difficult to master. That's really true here. You're going to get in, you're going to see some players do things that you don't understand how they're as good at doing it as they are. But that's perfectly okay. We already talked about specifically Reinhardt just being able to completely decimate a team if played correctly, if positioned correctly. And that will come with time. The more you play, the more you learn.
And I think it's also fun to look at what the other characters, the people who have already maybe a little bit more time in the game than you do, observe what they do, and you're going to find out things that are going to blow your mind. There are when we say hard to master, the abilities that they all have they are very straightforward, and you're going to understand, okay, that button does this and that button does that, and that's it. But if you're not necessarily used to these kinds of games, maybe you're not going to think that how they synergize, how all of these abilities do synergize. One very silly example is Reaper. You teleport somewhere, and then maybe you're going to think, I teleport and I start shooting, or I use my ultimate, or that is something that I'm going to do. But when you teleport, you're very visible. So you might get shut down before you pull off that incredible ultimate that gets you the play of the game. However, if you teleport a little bit farther, then maybe you have a hidden spot that you can go to, use your void, shadow walk ability to be invulnerable, and place yourself somewhere else. So combining all of those abilities is going to make you more efficient. I've seen, I think I mentioned it, but some turret placement from Symmetra that would, on its own, completely shut down a choke point, or they placing the turrets somewhere that they know other characters go to once they've passed the choke point. And you show up, and all of these turrets start shooting at you at the same time, and you're like, oh my god, what's happening? And you're dead. And of course, Symmetra is there as well, shooting you with her stupid gun that follows you around all the time. It has a range of like 2 meters, but if you're in those 2 meters, it's just, you don't need to aim. It's going to be insane. Tracer, okay, she teleports around, you can go through places, but she has incredible shortcuts. She can, specifically on the Temple of Anubis attacking side, if you go off, some people might not know what this is, but if you go off to the left, there's a ledge that you can only reach if you teleport, or teleport 3 times as Tracer, or go as Reaper. That completely bypasses the entire initial choke point. So I guess that the point is, try to think creatively with the abilities and what they can make you do, and look at what the other players are doing. It's going to help you progress very fast.
Absolutely. I also recommend play heroes that you aren't necessarily interested in, because you'll learn these things. You'll learn these crazy nooks and crannies that Tracer can get to, and you'll learn how to counter it. Even if you don't like playing Tracer, you'll learn how to kind of counter a Tracer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
although Tracer is really hard to counter, I have to say. She survives like forever, and she's zooming around and going like, hee hee hee, oh, cheers, love, and you want to slap her.
Yeah, but I mean, the first time you picked up Tracer, was that the case? No, you probably just died because she's made of paper, and her survivability is directly tied into the skill of the skill level of the person piloting her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I think it's they've nailed it. They've achieved a good level of skill reward with playing Tracer. So,
yeah.
I think it's going to more or less wrap up kind of our beginner's guide. So I hope this was helpful to the new players out there. I hope everyone gets into the stress test this weekend. Best of luck to you. Also fresh meat.
Well, fresh meat is probably going to be on your team as well.
That's true. So I'll be happy to teach some of you, and I can't wait to eat some of your lunches. So that'll be nice. That'll be good. A couple final points here before we move on. If you're looking for some side Overwatch entertainment, if you missed the first tournament ever for Overwatch, the Sombrero.gg $300 tournament that happened last week, we've got a link to the VOD in the show notes. Actually, I'll be putting this up once. I don't even know what episode this is anymore. Episode 7. Once this is actually up, if you're listening to this on podcast, head on over to amove.tv/Overwatchers. And find the show notes for this episode. We'll have a link to the VODs. But it was a good tournament. It's obviously a lot of peaks and valleys. It's a beta. The observing mode, while I'm ecstatic that it's even in the game this early on, it could use a little polishing up. It's a little hectic, and you could see that the casters were having a bit of a hard time following exactly what was going on. But it's pretty entertaining. If you want to see some high-level play, this is the place to do it. So go check it out, especially the finals between Non Enigma and Pub Stars. And then also, we just yesterday got a developer update from Jeff Kaplan. So I felt like bringing this up because maybe you've been watching streams and maybe you're not completely up to date. There were a couple changes that were probably worth noting. We already mentioned matchmaking. It'll probably be a little quicker this weekend, but your teams may not be as balanced as they have been. But how do you feel about that, Patrick?
Well, they're playing with the matchmaker. I think it's fine. They have a little bit of a rating for the matches and for the players as well, which I'm not sure how much good it's going to do. I guess they're only going to be looking at the ratings that are positive when you lose or negative when you win, because most people are just going to say, I win, positive. I lose, negative. So,
right.
But it's interesting, and the matchmaking, honestly, I haven't felt it. Maybe it's too small a pool of players, but I haven't felt like it was superbly frustrating. It was just I've won games, I've lost games, but it never felt incredibly frustrating at this point.
The only time where I feel I noticed the cracks in the system were when I first got in and we got together a full 6-stack team. Then the matchmaker gets kind of wonky because I'm sure it's matching us against other pre-mades. And this was day 2 of the beta. So I'm sure whatever matchmaking rankings that we have are crap at the moment. And we were probably going up against other pre-mades, which I'm assuming most of the pre-mades that early on probably know what they're doing. We didn't. We were a bunch of like Heroes and Hearthstone players just being like, yeah, Overwatch, let's do this. Aw, crap, TF2 players, we're dead. So also there's been some hero updates. Mitra kind of got buffed to be more viable as an offensive healer. You can shield more often. Her turrets are now easier to use and completely wreck people with. They made a change to the Mercy. They're not super stoked about. They put an animation delay on her Resurrect. They still feel that Resurrect is extremely powerful, so they're going to be still playing around and tweaking the Resurrect ability. I agree.
Yeah, the problem there was that the Resurrect was happening immediately as you pressed the button, and that was a little bit too powerful. So they made it happen at the end of Mercy's animation, which takes a couple of seconds. But the problem was the time it took her for her to do that animation, some of the players that were dead had already respawned, thus missing the resurrection. So they're thinking about other ways of doing it. I'm sure they'll find a way to make it work.
I feel like maybe it could mark those players for resurrect and maybe delay their respawn.
That's what I felt. It could work. That could work as well. I think he implied they were looking at other things.
Right. And I agree with Kaplan's points. It feels like one of the strongest abilities in the game. To be able to resurrect someone where they died in the heat of battle is extremely strong. So
yeah. Absolutely.
And then also McCree had his range kind of reined in. They felt he was too strong at long range, that he shouldn't be a sniper with a pistol. He's supposed to be kind of a mid-range skirmisher, and they've done that, and they seem like they're pretty happy with where McCree is, because he still feels very strong and very dangerous if you're within a mid to close range with him. But he can't completely just take your head off from across the map anymore. So.
Yeah, that's I think the character that everyone agreed was overpowered, because he was super effective at short and mid-range and super effective at long range as well. So they basically decided he's not a long-range player, he's a mid-range. So
yep. I agree. I'm pretty happy with the changes that they made. Not the mercy res. Kind of take issue with that. I got in after the honeymoon. I'm like, wait, what the hell's wrong with my resurrect? But other than that, I'm glad to see that they're already tweaking the game. That beta's only been out for a few weeks, and we're already seeing changes like this. Most of them positive. And I hope Jeff Kaplan keeps doing these developer updates, because I dig it. This is something we love in Hearthstone, how kind of open Team 5 is with the changes that they're making, and I'd like to see a lot of that with Overwatch as well. Will give us a lot of content for the show as well. We're a little biased here doing podcasts. Yeah, give us more stuff to talk about. Come on, guys, let's do this. So I think that's gonna wrap up this episode of Overwatchers. This is definitely our longest episode yet, so I hope everyone enjoyed it. A lot of people are like, oh, come on, why isn't Overwatchers almost like 2 hours like the Angry Chicken sometimes? It's like, well,
it hasn't been. It's an hour.
Yeah, it's most of our shows have been like 30 minutes to 40 minutes. So even going past the hour mark, it's a sizable show now. So hope everyone enjoyed it. You can follow us on Twitter at OverwatchCast. Just a reminder, the name of the show is Overwatchers, but that Twitter handle is very much taken. So there you go. Our email is mail, M-A-I-L, overwatchers@gmail.com.
That hasn't changed.
Send us email there. Maybe changing that in the near future, because we do have some say over that. And it's just, oh, man, when I set that up, that just sounds so dumb. But whatever.
No, I like it.
Mail overwatchers@gmail.com. Send them in. Subscribe to us on iTunes. We're over at YouTube at youtube.com/amovetv. And drop us a review in iTunes. We've been gone for a little bit, but if you're enjoying the show, 5-star reviews go a long way to help the show find new listeners. So thank you for those reviews, guys. Patrick, where can folks find you?
Well, I guess on Twitter. I just wanted to mention for the next episodes, we're probably going to be going over roles and specific characters, right? So
yes,
we'll have content for sure in a couple of weeks, and we'll keep doing those. But for me, twitter.com/notpatrick is the easiest way to find me. You can also find me at frenchspin.com, where I have a couple of shows I host. One is about video games. It's called Pixels. One has nothing to do with video games. It's called the Phileas Club, and it discusses current events and world events with people from different countries, so we get different perspectives. And the next one, we're probably going to be talking about the events in Paris. So sorry for bringing down the mood in the show, but if you're interested in that and getting different perspectives on that, you can go listen to the Phileas Club at frenchspin.com. And I'm on the Instance with Scott Johnson, Willie Dills Gregory, and the Terpster every Friday as well.
Wonderful, and I'd recommend. I think you've. I don't think you brought down the mood at all. I think your kind of reaction and the way you've kind of kept your spirits up in the wake of all the terrible event that's been happening, especially where you live, is amazing, and I think is kind of a testament to the strength of your country and your city, man. So.
Thank you. I think it's more that I have access to the Overwatch beta, so I'm not allowed to be sad.
Oh, jeez, that's. There's a little weight to that statement.
Yeah, you have to. You can't let them affect you, right? If you do, they kind of win in a way. So
No,
you have to keep your spirits up and keep the fun. After an appropriate amount of you know reflection and a little bit of mourning. Try and keep living your life the way you have before so that they don't affect you. And that's what we're trying to do.
Agreed. Just happy as can be that you're safe and those directly around you are safe, Patrick. Because
thank you.
Yeah, I was on my honeymoon when I heard about it, and my first thought was, "Oh my God, I hope Patrick's okay." And then I checked your Twitter.
There were a number of listeners that reacted the same way. For a lot of people, I'm the one person from France that they know. And I can't tell you how many messages I got on Twitter and Facebook asking if I was okay and sending well wishes for me and my close one and my countrymen. And it warmed my heart, and it was a significant help in making things a little bit lighter in a dark moment. So yeah, thanks everyone, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, if we can somehow get out of that, there's no easy way to segue.
Well, we can. We'll save those for, as I was saying, the Phileas Club on FrenchSpin.com, and we are good spirited in that show as well. It's fun, casual conversations between friends, and we cover serious topics, but there's no reason we can't do it while staying positive. So that's what we do. And obviously, we do this show now every 2 weeks. Bi-weekly works for some people. It does work for us. And I hope that you're going to join us in 2 weeks to get the new episode, because we're going to have a lot of fun then as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to building up that chat room. Hopefully, with the crazy early time for me that's going on, I'm going to see a lot of our European listeners in the chat room. So because on Angry Chicken and Into the Nexus, guys are always asking when we're going to do shows at times that are a little better for you. So hopefully this works out. We'll see some of you in there, and we'll see you on the next show. If you want to see everything I do, you can find this show and every other show I do over at amove.tv. That's AMOVE.tv. Check it out. Check out Overwatchers. Check out Angry Chicken. I'm on Twitter at Garrett Art. And that'll do it for this week's episode. So get out there. Hopefully everyone gets into the stress test. Just good luck, and most importantly, have fun, guys. See you next time.
Bye.